Waiting's great. I mean, you know, we were waiting for each other to press the button, camaraderie, companionship. I mean, that's awesome. Welcome to another welcome to another Cryptowriter Roundtable, where we have a great panel on Eden on EOS. This is your co-hosts, me, Jimmy D, and Corey Cottrell. And with us we have Felix, Luke, Chris, John, and Earthman, Mark, Scheer. We're gonna let you guys get into it and give your gratitudes in a minute, but first we're gonna play most possibly the best Eden on EOS video ever.
Fine.
Participated in a political playoff election. It was the first of its kind, and I believe it will be historic. So the grand prize was 1,000 EOS, and it was an awesome experience. So let's just jump right in. So to start, there were 64 participants in this first ever political playoff election that occurred.
So YouTube's being annoying? Sorry, guys.
All right, guys. Last week I participated in a political playoff election. It was the first of its kind, and I believe it will be historic. So the grand prize was 1,000 EOS, and it was an awesome experience. So let's just jump right in. So to start, there were 64 participants in this first ever political playoff election that occurred all on Zoom. From there, we randomized into 16 different rooms of 4 people for the first round of the playoffs. I was randomized into room 3 with a great group of guys, Mark, Ray, and Giuseppe. We started the process by first declaring whether or not we intended to run to be the elected representative to manage the 1,000 EOS fund.
I intend to run.
I intend to run.
I don't intend to run.
The catch here is that only one of us could advance from each room to the next round of the playoffs, and the only way that could happen was by receiving at least 3 out of the 4 total votes.
This is cool because like we're all gonna have to reach an agreement, even though like there's 3 of us that all want it.
Is that the prisoner's dilemma? That's the prisoner's dilemma. It is. And we're living it. Oh no.
So for 1 hour, we all shared our backgrounds and stories, discussing what we would use 1,000 EOS for, and it led to some great conversation. We all shared the same goal of wanting to make the world a better place, which brought us to work together in reaching an agreement to unanimously vote for Mark to the next round to represent our group. Though I wanted to advance myself, I found it more important to collectively work together, and Mark had shown to have a nice background in contributing to the EOS community with his project called Tippet. Tippet is a web application that allows people to send digital tokens like EOS on numerous platforms like Twitch, Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. After an hour of allotted time for the first round, all 16 groups reached consensus, sending forth 16 representatives to the second round where things would begin to heat up. The second round began by randomizing the qualifiers from round 1 into 4 rooms of 4. In room 1, we had Mark, Ami, Todd, and Edgar. The room reached 3 out of the 4 votes for Ami, a software developer from Israel who has been working on translating More Equal Animals into Hebrew. The book, More Equal Animals, The Subtle Art of True Democracy, is written by Dan Larimer himself, and it is what has inspired this political playoff election. In room 2, we had Chris, Simon, Seth, and Dan. In this room, Chris advanced with a unanimous vote with the pitch of using the funds to support John from Boyd to upgrade the EOS PowerUp software. In room 3, we had some heavy hitters from the EOS community with Eves from EOS Nation, the #1 block producer, Luke Stokes, Han, and John from Boyd. This group became very interesting as the group unanimously voted for John to advance for his commitment to using the funds to fund himself to continue to advance the EOS PowerUp software. But Eves upped the stakes by giving John more leverage going into the final round by committing to match the 1,000 EOS under the condition that John won the final round.
And you will add 1,000 EOS to the crowdfunding pool if I win.
In the end, you sweeten the pot by saying, and on top of that, if you guys put me forward, Eve is going to match 1,000 EOS in his crowdfunding platform, which will then go towards whatever.
Yeah.
You're also putting it in then that if
you don't
they
win,
don't
nothing happens.
vote you, no matching, right? So that's a key to get them to vote for you.
In room 4, we had Mike, Randall, Crypto Blood, and Johnny. They unanimously advanced Mike for his pitch to use the funds based on what the community felt the funds would be best used for. Mike has been tied closely with Dan Larimer as he worked at Block 1 for the last 2.5 years and has spent numerous years studying Dan's principles and philosophies. And then there was the final round. John, Ami, Mike, and Chris were the final 4 representatives in this final round. Everyone agreed on the importance of marketing and education, but also realized that the small fund of 1,000 EOS was not enough to make an immediate impact. It came down to Chris and John, who were both representing the idea of upgrading the EOS PowerUp software. With John being the developer behind the software, the group was leaning towards Chris to add a layer of accountability for John to build out the upgrades to the software. When John revealed Eve's proposal of matching the 1,000 EOS fund, the group felt uneasy with an outside influence and finalized their decision to go with Chris. It was nice to see that the group set a precedent not to allow an outside influence to affect their vote, and the final round concluded with everyone excited for the future of Eden on EOS.
Go EOS. Go EOS. Go Eden OS. That's right.
Overall, the experience was amazing, and this is just the beginning of what I believe could become the future of democracy. I hope you enjoyed my recap of the Eden playoff elections, and if you're interested in getting involved with Eden, then make sure to check out the video description for more information. Until next time, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Peace out.
Baller.
I mean, that was just a really super fun, well done video. So thanks for that recap, Felix. And that, like, I like the fact that like there's quite a few people in this room that were featured in that video. So that's super
Indeed.
fun. So I like it. Yeah. So I guess what I'm gonna let you guys give a quick introduction to yourselves, just because that'll probably be shorter than me giving you all the amazing praise that you probably deserve. So let's start with Felix. Maybe a couple lines. Who are you, and what do you do? Oh, sorry. I think you're muted. I'll unmute it. There you go.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We're good. All right. Yeah. So a little background on me. I went to school at Texas Tech. I have a degree in petroleum engineering. But you know, as a young kid coming out of high school, the first thing, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was good at math and science, and so I chose petroleum engineering because that was the hot, you know, money maker at the time. But after getting out of school, you know, that's when I started to really realize, like, hey, this is not something really interested in being in long term, especially with how volatile the oil and gas industry is. And then I stumbled upon, you know, crypto in 2018, and ever since then I've been wanting to get into the industry. And so I was a Genesis EOS holder, and I've just been, you know, I tried learning computer science. I've been learning. So coding, I don't feel like is my lane to contribute. And now that Eden has popped up, I feel like offered a tremendous opportunity to be able to contribute. Now I'm focused on, I'm an aspiring like content creator. So I'm hoping to be able to bring more eyes onto the EOS ecosystem and now the Eden community as well.
I think Chris Barnes used to work in the renewable energy industry. So the minute he heard oil and gas, he's like, screw this, man, I'm out.
My first job was actually in the renewable industry because when I graduated in 2016, I mean, the whole market, the oil and gas was just going down. And I got my senior year, our main professor, he was like, well, congrats, guys. He's like, you guys made it. He's like, you might not have a job after this year, but you made it. And so
I like it. Okay. Yeah. Mark, let's go with you next.
Yeah. Quick, like long way back would be, 2013. I bought Bitcoin and I bought it, I'm a kind of classic for the tech. I'm in it for the tech, and I could care less, and then, many years went by, 2016, 17, I had my eye on smart contract. I was so happy just to hear those two words. I was like, this is, complexity wise. And, so yeah, Ethereum just kaboom. And that was my baby for about 1 year. And the number of problems amounted to, a handful of fundamental issues that we're pretty familiar with here in this room. But then I saw Dan Larimer interviewed by Ivan on Tech, and my head was just like, yeah, answered first question, answered my second question, answered my third. every single problem had like a solid solution potential. And I shifted everything from the ETH into the EOS. So since then, I've been enjoying the sequence. It's just so much, so full of many different micro adventures, and by trade, I work as an engineer. And for the last 6 or 7 years, I've worked as a test director for IT systems in the research and development field, where we work for the U.S. Navy in producing solutions for the what we call the battlefield need. So I think that probably captures it. I'm really excited right now about so much, but that's a background.
Yeah, and I think if I'm correct, you're one of the people who kind of heads a lot of the content around EOS on Eden on EOS. You run you're involved with the YouTube and some of the promotional posts. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's organic. I throw stuff out there that I really like. For example, the YouTube piece was so that I could watch all that stuff. Like I just organized it on my YouTube kind of ability, and it was obviously very valuable.
Cool. And next, John Heeter. If you don't know who John Heeter is, well, then you're not watching Corey and Jimmy D enough. So like and subscribe. Because we rave about him. But John, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is John. I'm a developer in the EOS space. I've built a few projects. I was worked on Boyd, Vigor, EOS PowerUp, Power Pools, and other things as well. And I'm interested in decentralized governance, and I'm interested in, making EOS as good as it can be. I am also in it for the tech. And also I always thought it was interesting how in 2017 when I got in the 2016 when I got in the blockchain space, I was like, why isn't BitShares a bigger thing? This is so cool. This is really cool, right? I always feel like, this Dan Larimer technology, it's a few years ahead of its time, and we kind of pay the price for being early to the game. But, it's a good crew. It's a good crowd.
I think that whole center row might be in it for the tech as well. If I'm honest about it, another one of our favorites on the show is Luke. I like having Luke on because it's always unexpected. It's always interesting. It's always fun. And I don't know, I might be, out of myself here, but I always think of Luke as one of the biggest EOS.io adopters, but at the same time, one of the biggest EOS cynics because he's very vocal about it. So having you in the Eden thing, I thought was really, that's the bullshit alarm. What's going on here? Having you in the Eden thing was really cool. So for people who don't know you, Luke, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Happy to. Thanks so much for having me. And good call, Felix, getting out of that volatile oil and gas into crypto. Much more stable, right?
Clean energy.
So I majored in computer science. I went to University of Pennsylvania. Been always excited about technology. Definitely in it for the technology and in it for the freedom. I think technology enables humans to be free. And bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. Been involved in the crypto space for a while. I ran a company called FoxyCart for 10 years, an e-commerce shopping cart platform. So I was really involved in the whole payment system as far as acquirers, merchant accounts, payment gateways, banks, and that whole Ponzi drama scheme that it is. And through that experience, I echo your perspective on BitShares. I got involved in the Steem blockchain in 2016. Eventually was part of the whole transition to Hive. I was a validator there. I'm very excited about. I was shorting the US dollar with BitUSD and doing margins with BitShares. It was freaking awesome. Totally confused why the whole world wasn't freaking out about how great BitShares was, and felt the same way about Steem and Hive. This uncensorable tool for global consensus and communication, just incredible stuff. And ended up getting recruited to be part of the EOS launch with EOS DAC, which is a community-owned block producer and DAC enabler. Very, very passionate about governance, decentralized autonomous communities and consortia and companies and things of that nature. And eventually moved here to Puerto Rico 2.5 years ago with my wife and 3 kids. After I moved here, I ended up meeting Brock and got recruited to help try to launch kind of an EOS Foundation DAO sort of entity. We worked on that for about 6 to 9 months and didn't make much progress because it didn't have support from Block One or Dan Larimer. And so now with Eden OS, we've got Dan's support. We've got a lot of excitement in the community. And it's some really, really neat stuff happening. So I sold my company in the beginning of 2018 so I could focus full time on crypto advising and consulting. Ended up finding the company behind the FIO protocol, which is what I do full time now. I'm the managing director for the Foundation for Inner Wallet Operability. It's a nonprofit that's trying to make crypto easier, across all cryptocurrencies. So human readable addresses and things like that. And the main critique you could say that Jimmy's referring to is a post I did about a month or so ago, kind of describing how Block One is a little bit dropped the ball as far as the EOS community. And it really breaks down a lot of the problems that are EOS problems can actually, from my unique perspective, be kind of directed a little bit towards the way Block One has managed funds. And so that's why I'm really excited about you and Eden OS. We have a mechanism for the community to manage funds. I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, and I'm taking the piss a little bit, but like Corey and I often on our show are quite critical, and that's why we like it, because you're a realist in that. And our final guest that's here today is Chris Barnes. We had Chris on, I guess maybe last week, I believe, because crypto time I get confused. And that was a super fun episode. Yeah, he's the head honcho now. In what just transpired in that little video that you saw of Felix's. So take it away, Chris.
Definitely not a head honcho, just the guy lucky enough to end up at the top in this first trial run. So yeah. I'm Chris. I got into crypto when I heard Andreas Antonopoulos talk about banking the unbanked. And I was kind of sold at that point. Learned about EOS, and then I was diverted from that dream, recognizing the tech. So I was in it for the tech. And now I've learned of Eden. So I'm not just in it for the tech, I'm also in it for the governance and what's possible. So pretty exciting times. And I'm glad that we get a chance to talk more about Eden on EOS.
So as always, this is on the Cryptowriter channel. So anyone who's watching it now or watching it back later, probably tomorrow at some point in time, there'll be like a trivia over in the Cryptowriter channel. And if you answer some questions, you might get some Finney coins. So I hope you took all that in. That was pretty awesome. We're going to do some gratitudes in a bit. But before we do that, I'd like to ask one question. And this is a really simple question. If you're out there in the audience and you watch the video at the beginning, you might get this. But here's my question. Why Boyd? That was that was a really big topic. Like, right, Chris ran for it, John ran for it, Luke supported it, Yves Leroux supported it, all the people in their group supported it. What was it to the people out there? I'm not sure about Mark and Felix if you were in those rounds or not, but what was it about the people out there about Boyd that spoke to you? Like, because what happened with the funding was that 1,000 EOS that Chris ended up receiving actually goes to the cause, which will be that's basically, it'll be bigger in later renditions down the road. But that 1,000 EOS goes to the cause of the person who run. And there's a lot of people in this group that actually supported some variation of what Boyd was bringing to it. And I'm just curious why. Like, Luke has the FIO protocol that's built out. Like, I'm just kind of curious what you guys think. I'm just going to throw it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, if I could go, I'd love to answer that one, because the reason why I'm involved in FIO protocol is usability. Usability is incredibly important. And I think just like Steve Jobs came in and gave everybody one button and just reworked the entire computer industry, it made it less about geeks and nerds with their jargon and more about artists and creatives. I think the EOS PowerUp, to be very clear, the EOS PowerUp model was what we were supporting through the work that has been done to make that usability so much better. So if you're not familiar, the EOS network has been plagued with a really significant usability challenge. You have to stake for resources such as RAM and CPU, or you have to buy a RAM and you have to stake for resources such as CPU and bandwidth. And if you've ever tried to unstake your tokens and been frustrated and you want to throw your computer across the wall, it because EOS gives you some cryptic error that you don't understand, and you're like, why the heck can't I just pay a fee and move on? And that's what EOS PowerUp does. And so there was a tool. So through much development, the entire network was modified so that you no longer have to stake your resources. You can just pay tiny amounts to interact with the chain. Or you can go to a free, beautiful, amazing website that just put in your account. Every 12 hours, you can get just a little bit to do a transaction. You don't even have to worry about paying or having EOS unstaked or any of those, complex user experiences. And this is just critically important. Being able to have the EOS PowerUp tool, the website that was built to be able to do that, radically improves usability and helps people understand this new model. So I think it's one of the most important projects in EOS to help people actually use EOS today.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I screwed up. I did say Boyd, but it was PowerPools. I was just looking at John's tag there. So yeah, sorry. But thank you for correcting me there. And go ahead, Mr. Scheer.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add is on the working level, on the ground, local product. So in this case, it happens to be a 5-star product, EOS PowerUp.io. But in John's first election, we had everyone was brand new. We had 3 out of 4 of us giving a pitch, and in the middle of that surfaced this idea of locality and wanting something in my hands to track, to look at, and go, wow. No idealist stuff necessarily. I don't mind the idealist, but we wanted something really at the kernel level, so we could put our hands on it, use it. Well, EOS PowerUp.io was that, because it's been building, and John Boyd here has done the VIG and Vigor, and another very visible project prior to that. So it's like he's a get it done type of but it was interesting to see that shift in the middle of that round 1 where John's in the running. I've got an idea, another fella's got an idea, and there it's all really good, but in 15 to 25 minutes, it surfaced. We want the stuff right now. Not only that, EOS PowerUp is a great product. So it could have been maybe, anyways, twofold. One is having a product, that we can use now. The other one is, obviously EOS PowerUp is like one of the 2 major infrastructures. One is Anchor Wallet. One is EOS PowerUp.io right now.
Yeah, and Chris kind of answered this question for us as well Chris kind of answered this question as well on our live stream, but I'll give you the opportunity as well because and I'd like to explain to you now what happens next, Chris, because you actually got the funding for that. So what's the next process?
Yeah, I gravitated to this project just because it seemed to me, knowing there was only 1,000 EOS up for grabs, that sort of curtails the scope of what we could try to accomplish. So I used that narrative successfully to get through to the final round. I had some good luck too, because my first round, no one else wanted to move up. My second round, one of the guys was working with the project. So really a lot of luck factor involved, but it was an easy win. It was measurable, which is important. And the community gets to take advantage of, it demonstrates that Eden can work, this process can work. And then it kind of just opens the door for other larger projects later on when there's more funding available. So yeah, now basically John's been killing it, and the funds are meant to be used to increase the usability of this free PowerUp service that he already created by creating a Telegram and Discord bot that you can do right in Telegram and in Discord to power up an account, as opposed to going to a website. So it just makes it easier to use. So funding for that is going to go to John. Then what we were going to do is also 100 EOS was just going to be deposited straight into the sort of the pool that these free transactions would pull from. But we've actually, as a board, so the final 4 group called the board in the playoff, we decided that we were going to redirect that 100 EOS because EOS Dublin donated 100 EOS to this cause, basically. So with their donation, which was awesome, props to EOS Dublin, we are now going to redirect 100 EOS to Greymass, who came up lots during the many rounds and discussions as being a very deserving participant and contributor to the EOS community. So now it's, John gets paid for his hard work, well-deserved. Some EOS from the donation gets put into the PowerUp fund for more free transactions, and Greymass gets a little piece of that as well, which they deserve.
And yeah, so people who might not know, maybe John, you can explain it in a sense of too, like what is EOS PowerUp.io and why did you create it?
Sure, EOS PowerUp.io. It's basically, it provides free power-ups every day for anyone. So you could think of it like the old school Bitcoin faucets, where you could just go there and get a little bit of Bitcoin every day. Same idea, but a little bit of resources. And for a lot of people, that's all they need. They just need to do a few transfers per day, and it's fine. You go there, enter in your account, don't have to log in or anything. And then for more advanced users, for power users, you can register your account to be monitored, and our system will perform power-ups for you automatically. So it'll make sure your account always has some resources available, and you just deposit some funds, and the system will, pull from your funds and pay, for your resources automatically. The reason I made it is because to scratch my own itch, which is like my favorite type of thing to build, because I know exactly who the customer is. And I just hope that there's more people like me out there, So it was pretty easy to build, relatively simple compared to other stuff I build. So, and I think honestly, this whole event, to me, it showed that Eden could be used to fund projects that are used by people on a day-to-day basis, like very practical, kind of down-to-earth type projects, not like big. It doesn't have to be like these big, grandiose, idealistic types of things, which for people who've been in the blockchain space for a while, you get kind of weary of all the ideas that people throw around. So people like to have something that they can actually point out and use. So I think that's a big part of the appeal. I also think it shows how important just a little bit of coordination in Eden is, because a lot of people went in like totally blind, and they're just like, I'll use the funds how the community would like me to use the funds, or I'll use the funds, we'll make something, so, just having a few people like Seth and Chris in there who were interested at the get-go of supporting me. And also Mark was also, familiar and interested as well. So, it was easy, for me to win, which is kind of how it should have, kind of how we wanted it to go. Right. So it was kind of like a meritocracy, which is kind of what we were going for. So I went into the process of Eden kind of neutral, kind of like, hopefully this is good, but the end result might just be the same people that we already trust anyways, right, at the top. And I went out of the process like very enthusiastic, very happy, very excited for the future of EOS.
Luke, you got, I'm assuming like maybe that might have been your experience as well. I think like it kind of.
No, absolutely. No, it was amazing. I mean, we all came out of it going, this was the greatest, experience in governance we've ever had. And I should back up a little bit and say, like, when I talked about EOS DAC, that's more been a lessons learned, unfortunately. I mean, it's an amazing community. We had incredible technology, but essentially we learned a lot. Don't airdrop your governance tokens on people that don't know what you're doing. Like DACs and DAOs are really hard. Governance is extremely difficult. Decentralized governance, when you have a 10 of 12 multi-sig, for example, to change thresholds, that's really difficult. We had a year where nobody got paid in EOS DAC. And so everyone kind of left, and they were just like, we're over it. We're not going to keep working to build the DAC factory and all this. And of course, you guys probably know the story. Michael Yates and many of the people that were part of the DeCoco service company went on to do Alien Worlds. Then they're doing phenomenally successful. And it's funny is they're still on the same exact mission. They're building DACs and DAOs, but they're doing it in a like gamified way. And so like for me, it was just an amazing experience to think like we can do governance. We can find a way to come to consensus. And when I think about blockchains, that's what they are. They're global nonviolent consensus. They're tools that our species has never had before. And it's really, really exciting.
I think it's kind of interesting. I didn't have time to follow it until like kind of after it was over. And I thought it was really cool. I think we should do some gratitudes. We haven't done that yet. We got kind of carried away. But maybe after we finish the gratitudes, I'm kind of curious as to what other people were running for. I think you mentioned it, Felix, in the video, but I forget now. And Mark and Luke and what you guys were running for. And then maybe the general question that I'd like to ask is like, how did you decide what you wanted to run for? And what would you do differently when you do it again next time? I think that's kind of where I want to go with this session. But let's do some gratitudes first, I think.
On it, one sec. Boink. All right, well, Chris Barnes, whose name I totally know.
That's awesome. Okay, yeah, I am grateful for unexpected opportunities. Because that's what this is. This Eden thing, no one saw this coming.
Right. All right. Luke, you want to go next?
Sure. I am deeply grateful for enlightenment.
Felix.
I'm grateful for my family. Without them, I'm the person who I am because of them. And now I've got a growing family within the Eden community, so I'm excited for that.
Nice. All right, John.
I'm just grateful for Eden.
Scheer.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the infrastructure in place that enables us to roll out Eden so seamlessly, so smoothly.
Sign. All right, cool. I'm trying to figure out how to shorten that into something.
Eden infrastructure, maybe.
Or EOS infrastructure.
Yeah, EOS infrastructure for Eden.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like not only do we have word limits or character limits, but we also have line limits.
Yep. Jimmy.
I'm grateful for barrels and waterfalls.
What?
I'm grateful for barrels and waterfalls. Because both barrels and waterfalls are awesome. But sometimes when you put them together, disaster can ensue. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it there.
Good talk.
Felix, I think you're up.
All right, Felix already went.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he said grateful for family. Did we miss someone?
Just me, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. We actually are missing a guest. That's why I thought that we had one more.
I'm grateful for Jimmy D. Rando gratitudes. Good cake. All right, thanks, guys. That is everybody, right? Just want to make sure.
Yeah,
it is. All right, cool.
And so, yeah, I think like we've had most. Well, we've had 1, 2, 3, three of the 5 of you on exclusives, and we'd love to have, Mark and Felix on sometime as well. On our channel to talk about stuff. But the last one that we did was actually with Chris Barnes. And I thought this is interesting because like at the beginning of the show, I made the joke like, hey, Corey, this kind of sounds like something like you should do. You should like run. And Corey's like, there's no fucking way. And by the end of the episode, he's like, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, sure. You just to experience it, right? Like that, yeah, I think it's super, super fascinating. Because of the questions that it brings up, right? Like the thinking abstractly about building consensus is fun, but like trying to figure out how to actually do it in small groups of people over and over and over again, you need your why, you need your point, you need to understand the game theory behind it, but mostly just how to actually tap into people's wants and desires and how to work together. Like it's incentivizing those things at such a granular level that even just experiencing that and just with the assumption that I will get just crushed would be totally worth it.
For me, it's an incredible thing to think. Like, and if you haven't read it, go read More Equal Animals. I read that book in like 2 days. It's a phenomenal read that goes into the details of why it was organized and designed the way it was. And the ideas that stuck out to me the most is There's no political parties. Well, and we actually, it's funny, we discussed that quite a bit in the Telegram afterwards, if like the political parties could actually form, because that's almost a little bit what happened in the room I was in, right? But there's no lobbying. There's no like secret interest. There's no like, everything's completely public, out in front. Like every single video you just saw is an NFT. Like they're stored forever on IPFS, meaning your reputation, what you bring to the table, the commitments you make, all of that, unlike politicians today, like you're going to be held accountable to that. And everything you do and everything you say and everything you represent will stick with you forever. And so it's a really incredible way to bring a lot of signal to a world that's just full of noise, right? We got deep fakes, we got all these lying politicians, we got all this drama, but now we've got signal through this process. And the way it introduces randomization, there's actually a connection to like what was done in Athens and Greece with that. The way they did their political process of democracy actually had this randomization component to it. And I think it's actually really important. It's something we've lost. So I have so much hope with this process, more so than, I mean, I've been labeled an anarchist, a voluntarist, somebody who's kind of bashing on government and the violence of government. And I look at this and think, this is incredible. This is a huge potential to be something significant.
Yeah, and I just put the audiobook, by the way, since Luke put the smart plug in for that roadmap that Dan put into a book. There's the audiobook, and it's easy. Just let it roll, listen to it, and again, or whatever you want. Easy.
So Dan's website, I think, is in the website is in the chat, and I attached that is also the book. So yeah, so this is my way of like giving my favorite co-host of all time the advantage to dive into, you know, what lessons you guys learned, what you ran for, what worked, what didn't work. But before we do that, we have Brandon Lovejoy joining us. So maybe a quick intro from you, Brandon, if you want to fill us in on who you are and what do you do.
Yeah, hey guys, Brandon Lovejoy. Right now I write for Cryptowriter, and I've been dabbling and helping out with Eden and Clarion. I'm been around EOS since the Genesis days, and I'm kind of been involved in a lot of DPoS projects all the way back to BitShares. My background is film and video and writing and multimedia stuff. So yeah, I kind of come at this more from I'm here for the socio-political potential that I heard Luke just speaking to. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and thanks for joining us. Clarion, that's a whole other topic. We should do a roundtable on that too, because that looks really interesting. So yeah, so let's go back to Felix. Felix, what did you run for? Like, because I think both you and Mark said that you're kind of like your non-dev types, like, oh sorry, and I think Chris as well said that you're non-dev types and you just wanted to be like part of this governance. So like I'm curious, what was your pitch, Felix?
Yeah, it was cool. So I just started making content, and you know, I saw that I had heard about Eden, and then I saw that they were doing a test selection that anyone could sign up. So I was like, sweet, this is awesome. I can make content on this, and it gets me more involved. And so when I joined, that was kind of my pitch was, you know, I feel like funds could be used for marketing, and going through all the rooms and rounds, that was a common theme that a lot of people talked about. You know, it is important. EOS needs more marketing and just more info out there for people to learn, especially with a hot crypto market. There's just so much noise that it's important to have some good marketing out there. But you know, I did it for the experience as well. And I do think though, like the Eden community definitely needs good people to vet other people as well. So my whole strategy kind of going into it was, you know, I know my place. Like I know there's some hardcore people like John and Luke who have been, and I believe Brandon too, have been, you know, grinding on the software side, and you know, they've done a lot more to the community. And so at some point, if their pitch, if it makes more sense and things are leaning that way, you have to humble yourself and allow yourself to give your vote to somebody else. And so that's kind of was my idea going into into the playoffs and for future playoff elections. I think that's kind of my role. And, you know, as I start to build my reputation and my contributions to the community, then, you know, eventually I will end up in a position where I will be able to put my reputation on the line on a next level of managing funds, hopefully one day. But at the very beginning, my whole idea is, you know, be in here, share my voice, and also kind of help reach consensus, which Chris, I thought, did an amazing job with. He did a really good job of taking everybody's, you know, opinion and pitch into consideration and making them realize what the goal was at the end of this playoffs, which was scoring a quick win. So.
Hey, Brandon, do you live in an Escher house? Because it looked like you went down the steps and then ended up at the same place that you are now. I'm not really sure how that's possible.
Again, it was like some Jedi mind trick that I did. Yeah, I just walked down, got my tea, and came back up. Actually,
that's okay. So yeah, you're on the line. So how about you? What did you run for? And you know, what was your pitch? I guess per se.
Me? Actually, the day of the Eden trial election, I thought that I was going to be a volunteer, so I didn't really have a pitch. And so I ended up just kind of approaching the situation in a very neutral way without any particular agenda. I was more interested in, you know, identifying the person in the group. I wasn't necessarily ready to put myself forward unless there was just no one else that wanted to put themselves forward. So I kind of came at it more just seeing what the situation was. And as it turned out, everyone in the room wanted to advance to the next round. So, and many of them were, had been around building on EOS since the early days and were developers. And I just went with, they were super passionate. So I just kind of like went with them and let them, it was, by the end of the round, it was really obvious. Like everyone felt it was obvious who should advance to the next round based on just pure grit and passion. So
yeah, I thought it's interesting, like that you have to declare your intent to run. Like I don't know, do you have to declare your intent to run, or is that just what groups decided to do? Like is that like built into the?
Yeah, it was important because it's all voluntary. So it's voluntary association, meaning if you want to leave, you can leave at any time. And it's also voluntary in terms of you're never forced to participate in something you don't want to. So if you don't want to be responsible for funds or be a leader, you don't have to be. But I super appreciate what Felix just said, that, and I echo a similar perspective, that I might participate in future elections, not because I particularly have enough time as a managing director to like manage funds for EOS, but because I want to know that a great discussion happened for that meritocracy outcome that we're looking for. And we all can participate in that. And actually, I'd love to share a little story. We were at Brock's house a while back for a party, and it was really cool to listen to Crystal talk to my wife, Karine, who's not at all in blockchain. You know, she's a mom. She takes care of our 3 kids. She takes care of our house, really encouraging her very strongly, saying, you need to participate in Eden. Eden was 50% male, 50% female. Because you're not in blockchain, you need to participate in Eden. Because we're building tools for freedom that are going to impact moms and impact children and impact like the future, you need to participate in Eden. So I don't know that my wife will ever see this, but let's all try to like encourage her to participate in Eden, because I'm trying, and I think others are trying as well. And I would extend that invitation to all the wives and all the moms and everyone else that's watching this to recognize, like, you don't have to be a blockchain person to participate in Eden. And that's kind of the point. We're trying to build a new model that extends beyond what we've experienced in the past, where we come to consensus. And so as for me, I guess I'll go next because I'm rambling already. I had a similar perspective where I knew I didn't have the time to be, you know, actively involved in managing funds, but I wanted to participate in the process, and I was very honored to do so.
There you have your answer. I'm guessing Cinderella Man is not a mom, but you know, we're okay with Manny's around here, so it might be all right. Corey, did you? I saw your ears perk up there. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I hope somebody makes clips of all the super genius things you fuckers are saying, because like the idea that blockchain can provide the infrastructure so that we can, do these experiments in governance, is itself amazing. But it takes buy-in, right? Going back to the bit shares, why isn't everybody here? Well, if you don't have a strong enough why that everybody who isn't a hyper nerd who understands the potential of it, if they don't show up, well, then it wasn't good enough, right? And I think like Eden is fascinating on so many different layers that moms should be getting into it, right? Like it really is has such a profound potential effect on how we do governance, period, right? Whether it's at a government layer or at a town layer or municipality or whatever it is, right? So it just seems really like a really, really big deal, right? So getting just as a favor to me and the rest of our civilization, and that's not even hyperbole, right? Like find clips from stuff like this, and from I really, really loved what Felix did. From these things, call out to the moms and the wives and everybody who has a stake in civilization. Which, hold on, let me check my notes. It's everybody, right? Has a vested interest to try this out, to learn what it means, and very likely, I think, to get as fascinated as the rest of us are, because it really is kind of deeply profound. Like it has the potential to be a real demarcation point, like a spot where things changed for all of us.
Yeah, it's a part of it. Definitely, I believe, could be a huge part of history, and so I think that's a huge incentive for people who are considering, wanting to be a part of the Eden community. Is you can be a part of history. The way I look at it is like I think of Dan as a person that thinks like a founding father would have thought. And this community that we're building here, I mean, that could be like what the founding fathers of America was like. And we're starting that here. And if this is what takes over and becomes like the way the world runs governance, like you are a part of history. And that's huge, in my opinion, especially NFTs, everything. So it's, I think, a huge incentive for everybody to want to get involved and be a part of history. And yeah, big shout out to the women to come into this space, because I mean, what better way to market something of like being able to be open arms to everybody.
Yeah, I kind of see this spreading very naturally, where we prove out this Eden selection hierarchical system on EOS. We just focus EOS governance, we fix it. We finally fix this sort of Achilles heel that EOS has had since its launch. And so how do you measure that it's been fixed? Well, one of it's going to be just the community is going to become this gigantic bulldozer of power, because we're all going to be aligned in one direction, which is, making EOS a better technology, a better currency, a better system that's more open and accessible to other communities that don't even know about it. So we're going to prove this Eden process works on EOS. Then you're going to see, well, maybe those Cardano fellas or Polkadot, or pick your other crypto that has probably some other governance concerns, right? They're like, whoa, wait a minute. These EOS guys, look at this token price go moon, and maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it wasn't just bullish. Maybe this Eden thing had something to do with it. So then they incorporate this Eden political playoff system, which isn't just EOS specific. It's its own thing. We're just doing it on EOS first. So then slowly these other crypto communities first can adopt this system, not even realizing they're becoming impregnated with this whole bigger picture potential of what this can actually mean on a bigger scale. They don't need to worry about that necessarily. That might sound too outlandish and almost off-putting if it sounds too grandiose. But we'll just suck them into the ideas via make your bag heavier. And then slowly but surely it spreads, and then it'll take over. It'll be just a network effect. Will do its own thing.
So hold on, is this somebody in connected to the EOS blockchain that's basically saying, no, we're going to prove it? Show over. I'm just saying, there's been a lot of talk in EOS.
And I mean, such a grandiose idea, as it were. It's so bad it was impossible not to approve.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Mark, do you want to go? Because we never actually got to you. Like, what did you run on?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, basically everything we've just said. Big concur. You got the fundamentals, like we said. The infrastructure landscape is laid. We've definitely got a bunch of what I consider really smart people scratching their heads after that election, going, that was interesting. which is a really cool indicator of it breaking up the game, basically, with like the way normal elections, I put the list together. They're popularity, incumbent advantage, whatever, all the 6 major things that topple the electoral process, stuffing the ballot box. I mean, the incentive for organizing this governance and electing has been rewritten. And so in 6 months we're able to go through the mock election and come out going, wow, actually having a prize at the end. Well, we have a real election in a month, so nothing's wrong, everything's right. That's my indicators. And what's the output of this? I don't know. I put a poll out in our community. Unanimous 15 people say that after 6 months, we will have a metric that is really clear, that shows a distinct increase in productivity. And that's kind of just as a result of kind of a funding stream. But keep in mind, the other side is policy. I think after 30 days, we're going to have a solution to this hack protocol. We're going to get on paper. This is what you do in the case of another hack. Hacks are expected events, okay? That's progress, failing forward, okay? We wouldn't have the SpaceX explosion rockets. So hacks are fine. How do you go forward? You need governance. So because we got the cryptocurrency internetification of money underway, now we're like, oops, we need government of these, because Bitcoin just throws everything against the wall and sees what sticks. Well, Eden is a very elegant, internetification of governance, which who knew we would need governance to govern our economy, which is only 1/6 of a community. There's education, there's health, there's so and so. So anyway, I wanted to respond to what everyone said on that subject and make sure that was said. But to put a point on your question, my proposal when we did that mock election was I just kind of put something together and for build out in this building stages. Hey, here's a proposal, and it's a good one, but basically I just called it the EOS translation portal, because from China, Korea, Spanish speaking and English speaking, and go ahead and throw whatever, German, French, I want real-time flow. Even if we have to put a sign up that says, here's how to interpret Chinese culture to understand this serial data stream of their chats. You may have to understand things like their significance of color or their platitudes or their histories in order to even open that flow. So it's maybe a complicated question, but the objective is simple. You create a real-time communication portal to where, what you mean, I'm going to be able to literally talk and flow potentially like we are with the different speaking groups. To get on the ground in Venezuela 2 years ago, someone was interviewed by EOS podcast, the Money Man. The Venezuela POC just was amazing, because he was like, here's the issue in Venezuela. It's not just economy, it's all the other major infrastructures too. And then he's like, this is why I care. And he just explained. So I got all of this information kind of set from a totally different culture. It has a completely deflated currency. I'm like butter, like honey. And then I want that for China. Okay. We go like this with China. We build a translation portal with China. Rob, the guy from the original, the longest running EOS podcast, Rob Finch. He tried and he came out with the takeaway that said, basically the language barrier is basically everything. It's a dead stop on the dialogue between China. Everything would work well if we were hand in hand cooperating. 1 + 1 = 3 is the theory. We want to be in a group, a community, and work together to leverage our power to preserve our rights or ensure our rights. So protect our rights. Otherwise, they'll get taken away. So we need to bridge that gap. A reserve store of energy in each of these totally non-communication. There's no piping between us. So if we built something
as an idea, I like it. Like I'm not sure if I agree that solves the problem, to be honest, but I do like it. Like as a person who lives in Asia, but this is what I would think of it as. I would think of it as almost like the FIO protocol for like EOS community in a way, right? Like you're bridging all of these like cultural gaps and things like that, and it's definitely a problem, right? You know, I have family that lives in China. I live in Japan. For those of you that might not know. And it's really interesting to me because like a lot of people over here, like they don't really care about decentralization, right? Like they don't care about like voting in Japan, for example. Like this is really interesting to me because like they know that like if they vote, it's nothing's going to change anyway. But the best part about Japan is when a politician gets caught, they go online and they break down crying because they got caught. They're embarrassed not because they did something wrong. They're embarrassed because they got caught. Like it's a completely different culture, right? It cracks me up every time, right? And so like it's in, but I think the concept is right? Like I think if you can bridge that gap, because there is a lot of animosity between the East and the West, and there have been like some great block producers, like even EOS Nation were one of them, and you know, Rob Finch was another one that have been trying to bridge that gap to no avail. So I think like that language barrier definitely needs to be solved. I would probably want to throw more than 1,000 EOS behind it. I think it's a bigger problem than that, but like, yeah, it's a really cool idea for sure. So,
hey, as a little fun punctuation on that, I voted for John Boyd in round 1. You know, that's that. I want something. Yeah, I could come out with a exploratory committee on a portal, but no, here you go, John, take it.
No, I like it. So I think it's really interesting, right? So I'm just kind of curious, who went through to the second round here? I think John obviously did as well. Okay, cool. What did you end up voting for, Felix, for the first round? What was the proposal that you threw your weight behind?
So we went towards Mark's idea. He was wanting to use the funding for his product Tippet. So.
And sorry, yeah, that's right. I saw that in the video. Sorry, I get confused. There's a lot going on, but that was a great product too, right? And I think that's cool. How about you, Brandon? Who did your group end up putting through?
I was just looking for the answer to that. It was EOS Costa Rica. I'm forgetting Edgar of EOS Costa Rica. You know, Edgar didn't even really have a real specific proposal. He just had the street cred, and he had such passion, and he was so he'd just been all around all the problems of EOS for so long and understood exactly like how he wanted to approach the situation. We were like, go for it, man. Like, you got this. So we sent Edgar to the next round pretty much on sheer passion and street cred. There was no like real specific proposal, at least not that I'm recalling at the moment.
Can we give a shout out to EOS Costa Rica? I mean, they're probably, I would say, one of the most underappreciated, underrepresented block producers in the EOS community. The last I heard, they've never been paid. And that's just, you know, a tragedy. They donated a bunch of time when we were trying to build out the EOS Foundation DAO. They built a bunch of tools. I met with their team each week. Incredibly competent technical team. They've actually been working with enterprises doing cool stuff. Super big shout out to EOS Costa Rica. And I want to kind of spend a couple of minutes talking about governance, because as someone would look at that and say, well, that's a failure of governance, you know, and you hear this all the time, or at least I hear this all the time in non-EOS communities. They say EOS is a dead chain. EOS has this governance problem. If they don't fix the governance problem, then, you know, what the heck? And I think what they really mean is, it's amazing EOS is still alive when they didn't get billions of dollars from Block 1, whereas all these other projects got millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. And when I look at the governance of EOS, and this is something that took me a while to understand, but I'm at a place now where it's possible that governance on EOS is one of the most effective, functional, transparent, decentralized governance models there is. And how I would defend that is every one of these projects, every one of these chains has governance, and most of them are completely opaque. They're not transparent. You don't get to see how the sausage is made. You show up and there's some backroom deal with miners and rich people and whatever. There's some GitHub access where somebody got removed. There's always drama. In the crypto space, there's tons and tons of governance drama, and most of us don't even know about it. And the big difference between EOS and all these other governance models is people look at it and say, oh man, that's a bunch of crap. It's because they get to actually see it. And when there's, what appears to be one company running 2 block producers, guess what? We look at it and say, that's BS. We don't like that. When we see people being, greedy basically and saying, well, I know they're using my vote to do something that's jeopardizing the security of the chain, but I don't care. They give me kickbacks. So I'm going to keep my EOS tokens on some exchange that maybe isn't had the best interest long-term of EOS in mind. We get to see that. Everything is transparent. We get to see it. And that's why people, I think, critique the EOS governance, thinking it's so terrible. It's just because they actually get to see the sausage being made, and it's super uncomfortable. And so I'm really excited about Eden OS because it's basically taken this transparency and now moved it to the next level. We've learned from our mistakes. We're working on the mistakes. The staking model is another example of solutions that are coming because we have transparent governance, and most other projects don't. And I'm pretty excited about that.
Hey, just to throw one other thing in there, what I think how Eden can help resolve some of this. You mentioned EOS Costa Rica never getting paid. So now we have Eden is building this trust layer, right? This governance issue has been, as I see it, always centered around trust. How do we, you don't see how the sausage is being made. Like, how do I trust those individuals who are making this decision? Like that, it's this missing step. Eden is now a chance for the community to develop trust internally and start to trust the process, trust that people who end up in the top in each respective playoff are going to be doing the right thing for EOS. So now I think a next logical step is we build the Eden board. Eden builds its own proxy. So we get some of these more apathetic token holders who just do leave their tokens on an exchange because whatever, what's the difference? But if we can get those people to sort of join the community and become a part of it, and then recognize that their participation is more than just being part of the playoffs, but let's move your tokens to the Eden proxy. And if we can build enough strength in an Eden proxy and have an open set of metrics and KPI that rank BPs, where BPs like EOS Costa Rica will actually do much better in our ranking system because we'll use proper metrics that value what these guys are doing that don't otherwise become recognized, we can maybe make a change. Like, this is another opportunity for Eden to do so many things, but one of it is just to reorganize the BPs by collecting and aggregating votes from people who care. And now let's mix up that order and use a trusted set of people with a trusted set of metrics to start putting the right BPs where they should be.
I like it. I mean, it sounds quite similar to what Gen Pool did, except it's not coming from a block producer; it's coming from the community. And I think for me, the biggest potential in this is John mentioned this last week on our roundtable. We were talking about the EOS X hack, and I have a tendency to get things colluded in my mind. So correct me if I'm wrong here, John. But somebody in the comments said John just solved it, and his idea was what if there's a balance to that protocol whereby if you have to lock up accounts or fix problems like this, that somehow Eden was involved, or even if they had a veto or some kind of system like that. And so I think that kind of dualistic tiered government system would fix a lot of the problems whereby people are just criticizing block producers or criticizing block one because they've got no voice or they've got no say. So I think giving that voice back or that say is really quite interesting. If I didn't get that wrong, John, I think I got that about right. But I think this is an interesting question that came in from the comments, and I don't know really what this means. But if anyone wants to tackle this, I think it's quite a decent question to be asking, especially if you weren't a participant.
I had some thoughts on that. I saw that question as well. For me, you could lobby the person after they get elected. You could bribe them or whatever. We got Chris on the call. He's the Satoshi, right? He's got access to the funds. We could all go, hey, Chris, buddy, let me buy you a beer. The challenge is for him, if he was not the person of high integrity and character that he is that his commitments are transparent and visible on that NFT forever. This is what he said in all those videos he's going to do. And if he doesn't, he's out. And if he does such a bad job, you can get 10% of the community. If you go read the peace treaty, 10% of the community can just say, let's have a new election. It's supposed to be at least a year every year, but we could just do it now because this guy's a scam. Let's bump him out, right? And then how it, and there's a great debate. Again, if you go into the Telegram, talk about this. The idea is how it can't happen up to that is the randomization, meaning you would have to have so many sock puppets filling all the different groups. The example we gave was 64 groups of 4. The real is going to be probably 10 to 12 people. So there's going to be a lot of people that have to come to consensus. And if you can imagine 2/3 + 1 in 10 to 12 people, you need to stack the deck hard. And what's beautiful about that is the onboarding process is also an NFT. So if you want to be part of Eden, you have to have an existing member and 2 witnesses that are also members vouch for you and basically put their reputation on the line, saying this person's legit. We want them part of our community. And if they screw up, now those 3 people's reputation was damaged as well. So there's an ongoing process to make sure you have to be vetted even to be invited. And once you're in, then you're held accountable to what you do. And that randomization process means you're gonna have to stack the deck pretty hard to take it over.
Yeah. The 3 items to sum up on Luke is perfect. Reputation, empowerment by these small groups that are heard and able to express, and then the randomization. So those are like this incentive principal layer re-incentivized like structure that we put in play. It speaks to the potential problem perfectly, the way Luke just did.
I think a randomization would be, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, that's why I believe like Eden is just already a huge win for EOS, because regardless of how things happen, we're having funding going into the community, something we haven't had. And so now it's going to be a competition to everyone, all these representatives for the next election come around. Like, what did you do with those funds? How efficient were you with those funds? You're going to be held to that. What you said you were going to do with the funds, and then how you performed with those funds. And so, yeah, this whole transparent way of doing it is a huge win. So yeah, we might, if someone does end up, getting some funds and they had ill intent, that's it. I mean, that was it. Their reputation was on the line. Good luck getting back in.
Yeah, I like it, man. The funding is just going to melt our face here shortly. Just the funding alone.
One of the things I like to think about is like, look how successful EOS and EOS.io has been. I mean, if you look at Blocktivity, we're often 3 of the top 5 blockchains as far as like Telos, Wax, and EOS. Look how successful this community has been and how it's survived. Like how many of us raise our hands we're in it for the technology, because literally at this point, if you're still holding EOS tokens, there's no other reasonable explanation. But the idea that we've been this successful and we've done this much with essentially nothing. Not only that, I would argue, and I did in my post, that we've had a negative headwind. People that have been led along for 12 months that they're going to get funding from VC, Block 1 VC, for example, and didn't, and that eventually destroyed their opportunity to seek funding elsewhere. And so I'm excited about, if this community is this strong after it being battle tested with no funding, what's going to happen when it has funding? It's going to be exciting.
It's awesome too, because like Eden is just one part. Like I think a lot of people underestimate what's going on behind the scenes with Block 1. I mean, for me, one of the biggest things that like was my reason for being able to hold so strongly through this whole bear market from 2018 to 2020 was the investors behind Block 1. Like following smart money is huge. I think that's how you become a smart and like a good investor too. You understand who's backing these projects. And I mean, when you have people like Peter Thiel and you look at their track record of success on early companies, I saw on the Telegram, somebody posted a video of Peter Thiel in the 90s talking about the future of currency. And it's just like, this dude knows, he sees things so far in the future and he's making money moves and he's had great success. So you're betting against him in a sense. If you think like, yeah, in a sense, he has not directly said I'm an EOS holder, but come on, like you're telling me he's behind Block 1, bullish global, and he doesn't have any, it's just, like I said, I think people just need to be patient because it takes time. Like EOS is playing catch up with Ethereum and all these, legacy blockchains. And, it's been 3-4 years in the making now. And I think Block 1's about to really surprise a lot of people. And like I said, Eden is just a whole nother thing to be bullish about for EOS, but Block 1 itself too. I'm excited. I think we're going to the moon, baby.
And I just wanted to say, yeah, I hope that the Eden community can surprise people. And, to Luke's point, it's amazing the people that have held on. And we joke that we're in it for the technology. But one of the serious problems I think that is facing EOS is that we have lost a lot of talent and we have lost a lot of small teams, and we've chronically underfunded a lot of small teams like EOS Costa Rica. And I came out of EOS Detroit, which, crawled and dragged its way through the ranks, you know, and finally is somewhere in a moderately paid position. But I mean, EOS Dublin, I mean, there's so many great teams out there that have been underfunded. And I think early on it was just lost on people, and we had no way. I mean, the parameters were set such that the pay dropped off very suddenly, and it was more concentrated at the top. And I would like to see a more broad distribution of standby block producer pay. I think keeping standbys in the game, I think keeping other block producer teams around is a way that the community can fund talented, passionate teams that will develop and contribute to the community. And we let these people go at our own peril. So we've already lost a lot of good talent, and now is the time to turn that around.
You know, on that, number one, a huge metric would be to see if Eden begins to have a field effect on those folks, those specific folks that went out. And I have a feeling that I'm really going to look at that to see, we got someone who's been pulled in. Okay, another one, because this funding really does drive that. I mean, it has a huge place in their behavior. They will come back here if they can get that and work with that EOSIO, which I believe would be close to their heart. You know, they actually would say yes, okay. So I would love to see that effect as a metric to say, you know, is it being successful? Because that's a huge metric. And then number two, that idea of rotating standby BPs, I would like that legislation on the table in the first 6 months. You know, things like that be another interesting metric. All this cleanup, like housekeeping piece. Here they all are, and Dan said about 3 months ago something on the subject of are we going to be able to get the block producers to realign with this new Eden idea? And he said, leave that to me. I thought that was so cool. I was like, yeah, makes sense. He'll be like, hey, here's the deal, you know, whatever it is. But he got a 10 out of 10 reception from China when he spoke to them. They said,
I was just gonna say, the interesting thing about Dan coming in, it's funny, it's people like, oh, it's all centralized because Dan says this and Dan says that, but it's actually been the opposite. It's been completely decentralized with no visionary leadership, and Dan has been reluctant. And I've been on phone calls with him and Brock and others talking about some of this stuff. It's like there's been from my perception, there's been a little bit of a reluctance to stand up and be like, I'm that leader. I'm a co-founder of this whole community. I need to step up and provide vision. And the funny thing is, I did a little slide deck at one point for Dan and Brock, kind of talking about really just kind of lessons learned from my perception of the EOS Alliance, my perception of the EOS Foundation DAO, like why things didn't work out the way we wanted them to. And in that, I talked through, you know, a whole bunch of different things that I won't air all the laundry here. But one of the things I did get into was that when you look at all these other chains, they've got these visionary leaders. You look at Vitalik with Ethereum, you look at, you know, Hodgkins with Cardano, you look at, you know, even Satoshi, it still exists as this concept. And yet you've got these other kind of GitHub leaders in Bitcoin. You've got just so many, you know, Gavin with Polkadot, like there's just example after example after example. And EOS has Dan Larimer, but we never had him. It was like, and I've, you know, again, I'm not going to go into stories that don't need to be told, but basically, you know, behind the scenes, you hear about limitations on his ability to lead as the you know, lead tech guy at Block One, you know, his ability to hire, his ability to do, I mean, just from my perception, he wasn't ever put in that position. He wasn't at Steam as well, kind of with, you know, he basically picks bad business partners. Is the most obvious way to say it, you know, in some perspective. And again, I don't want to speak badly about Brendan Bloomer or anyone else. I probably can't well, anyway, I won't go into Ned Scott. We'll just leave that there. I had some interactions with him that were quite interesting back in the day.
I'll just say, like, I think that belongs in like the meme museum of history, right? Like, you know, Dan is the leader, but we never had him. Eden on EOS. The time is now. That's kind of like, right? And I think like you bring up a really good point. Like the minute that he left Block One, everyone cried and complained, right? Like, oh my God, he's gone. Like after all of this complaining about how centralized it was and how much of a problem it was, he left. again, won't go into that because I don't agree with the way that he left, but he never really left. He was there right away again and jump-started this. And this probably would have never happened if he would have never left, right? And so I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. But yeah, I think the comments are golden, by the way. I'm not going to put them up because I don't want to distract from anything that's happening on the screen, but brings up another interesting point that Chris said is like, this doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with blockchain, right? Like, it's great that it's on the blockchain. It's great that it's happening in EOS, but this is a whole new paradigm in terms of a government model. Like, somebody in the comments, mentioned like that it could be used in Canada, on native reservations, for example, right? Like, this could be used as a company structure, right? This could be used, essentially, it is a DAC structure in a way. It's a little bit varied, or it's a little bit different. So I'm just kind of curious if you guys think, like, what other potential, like, does this have? Like, where can you see this going? Can you essentially see this, like, taking over the world? I mean, there was a comment that was in the comments that I thought was really nice too. It's like, problem is the system is already too good to be true, and this is like a hesitation with a lot of people, right? And I would echo that sentiment with EOS in general, right? So, like, what are your takes? Like, what are the overall value adds that this whole new governance model has to add beyond even EOS, or beyond like the blockchain space?
It's hard to say, but we got a lot of good indicators for its trajectory towards success. I want to see 6 months, and then it's applicable anywhere. It's just going to be a second level, like, prove out system. Where can you put it? Where can you layer it on top of? So my curiosity, who's going to be the first central organization to do that? It's the DAC of all DACs. Eden is a DAC of all DACs. It's just it's the very cutting edge, most best DAC technology, in my opinion. But I would love to see that someone say, we're using. You know what? There's a Spanish speaking Eden organizing right now. Still similar, apples, but I'd like to see it for my homeowner association.
Yeah, it's an innovation on democracy, and everything is upgraded. Our internet's upgrading with blockchain, and now we need to innovate and upgrade our government system, because clearly it's failing us. And yeah, that's why it's exciting for sure.
Yeah, the application is, it's anytime you have a group of people who have some form of hierarchical structure where you have leadership or representatives, any type of group. It can be as small as 4 people and as big as millions. So wherever those groups are, if you want to try a new way to select your representatives and select your leaders, you just use this process. It doesn't have to be blockchain. It absolutely can be, and it's going to be in this case, but any group of people. And then back to the question about Dan and the leadership piece, what I think is so cool is Dan is a leader, not just because of the words and not just because of being able to make quick, important decisions. He's creating, like, he creates technology. He creates tools that empowers the people. Like, it's almost the purest form of servant leadership, where he's creating things for the rest of us to take control of our destiny. And I don't know, to me, that has far longer legs than just being able to be on the ball and make decisions and tell everybody what they should do. And because Dan's a brilliant dude, we're just going to trust him. It's like, yeah, that's all true. But now we can just trust a process that he created to empower the community to have a voice. And we all become leaders, right? We're all Satoshi. Yeah, pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I could see that story of the EOS original idea, and then the funding, the IPO or ICO, and then the launch of the chain, and the separation between the community and Block One, and then it comes around, and Dan breaks from Block. A whole bunch of good stuff was done the whole time, and then Dan comes back, and it's distinct in Felix's video sometime soon in the future. I could see you explaining that crazy dynamic. How now Dan jumps onto the community and he's like, all right, here we are. I've studied this. I wrote this book. Here's what we're going to do. And comes in and just completely organizes the community. That would be a very difficult concept to understand. But the way that you condensed the election thing, I have all the confidence in the world. You could condense that story in some kind of a way. I mean, someone could do it. You modeled it.
Well, I mean, in a way, he gives you the cow, right? Instead of most restaurants that give you 3 beef options. The problem is nobody knows how to kill the cow because there's a fundamental problem in our education system, especially when it comes around like economics and governance. But yeah, that's a different stream for a different time. But I like that analogy, right? Like he does give the community great technology and great software, like to be able to build. And in a lot of ways, like I'm with the people on this stream that is not technically minded. Like I have horror computers. I hate computers, right? They drive me insane. Like I get frustrated because they don't work. But now, like I used to get frustrated because they don't work, but now I get frustrated they don't work as well as blockchain. But I'm still like on the side of like not really understanding. So I'm not tech minded. So I like the potential of blockchain for governance, especially. I like the potential of blockchain for like accountability in corporate structures. And I think like this is really, really something that I could see a valid use case. Like there's other valid use cases as well, but as opposed to just like a speculative nature or a DeFi nature, like I think this could down the road be one of the strongest use cases, like freedom, empowerment, the ability to put like land rights in third world countries on the blockchain and have that ability to be able to say, no, you can't take that. You're the government, but it's already there. Like it's already clear cut. So I think like the expansion of applications. Sorry, you got me tongue twisted there because I liked when you said sorry, I got confused. But you said something about an app that I thought would be good. Adopt Eden app or something like that would be a great name for like a plug and play, like K-type version of the Eden governance model or something, But yeah, like I mean, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but I get really excited when it comes to politics because that's kind of what I did in the real world. Not politics, but I taught that, and I like to complain about it, and I think like complaining makes things better. And in a way, that might be the appeal of Eden, because it's like Luke said, the one blockchain that has been transparent, that has suffered a lot of negative energy, that has suffered a lot of negative complaints. But now there's this avenue for anyone at all to come in and run and potentially, change the course of how the community is organized. And I think that's really amazing, right? Like, I mean, you could have someone come in and promote giving all of the funds to a project on Ethereum, for example. They probably wouldn't get through, but let's just say like it's better as an option than something that people have no control over. That I'll just leave that there. But
So I want to jump in a little bit and just give a shout out to Jimmy and the people that are non-technical that are watching this. Like, you are the future of blockchain. A lot of people don't realize this and they don't think about it this way. But when you look at like the law of diffusion of innovation talks about, you got these early like innovators that are like 2-3%, and then you have the 12.5% that early adopters. We're just not even at the 12.5% yet. Like if you follow the adoption of the internet, we're about 4 to 5 years away from 1 billion users. We're following that same curve. We're actually faster than that curve after 10 plus years of doublings. And the internet was about 7.5 years from where we are now to 1 billion users. So I'm really excited about the non-technical, the non-innovators, the people who are not into blockchain, crypto technology, all that. That's where the largest market share is coming from. And, you guys, Jimmy, and people that are not technical, not people like me with a computer science degree, you guys are the ones that are going to direct where this goes, because you're going to bring in your frustrations and your complaints, but like, this is too hard to use. I can't use this crap. And that's really important. That's stuff that, John needs to make, EOS PowerUp better, and Greymass needs to make their wallets better. And all of us need that feedback to say, hey, this is what a normal person experiences. This is unacceptable, right? And usability is so incredibly important. And if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to show my thing a little bit, because that's why I'm here. Well, obviously I'm passionate about DAX and DAOs. I've been doing that for years, and that's why Eden OS I think is awesome. I agree, a DAC of DAX. It's an incredible framework for doing governance. But I put this in our little chat between the group here, but I want to let everyone else know as well. I put out an initiative and talked to my team about it and the steering committee, and they were okay with it. And I'm giving, basically the foundation is giving away FIO addresses to everyone who's an Eden member. So while we're on the call, I literally ran my script and I generated 9 more FIO addresses, including Mark. So Mark got his free FIO address at Eden. So if you go to the FIO community, the Eden OS community page, you can see there's a thread about that. And why this is interesting, why I feel this is significant. The Eden domain, it's a FIO domain, is a private domain, meaning currently I have control of that private key as a managing director. I'm the only one that can issue addresses at that. And you can verify each one of those that they're valid because you can see on chain who the members of Eden are. So if you get a FIO request, or you want to send a FIO request, even more interesting, to a member of Eden, let's say as this happens and there's somebody with $100,000 that they're supposed to give out, you can, if you have an agreement with them, as a fellow Eden member, you can send them a FIO request and say, hey, remember that project that you talked about funding? You know that I'm the guy involved in that project. Look, here's my Eden FIO address. You can approve that FIO request and send them the tokens. And it could be any tokens. It could be Hive tokens. It could be BitShares tokens. We could revitalize some of these older communities. It could be Bitcoin, be Ethereum, or it could be USDT. Not everybody wants EOS as a token, for example. So I imagine these treasuries and these foundations, these DACs are going to start swapping tokens back and forth to get more distributed, holdings. So you're going to have probably Eden may someday hold more than EOS, for example. And it might be wrap tokens with P Network or who knows what, right? And so we're going to be transferring back and forth these tokens. We got to do it in a trusted way. Well, now if you have an @Eden FIO address, you immediately have the credibility of the entire Eden OS governance system. And I think that's really significant. It's Sybil attack resistant. It's like so many other amazing things that you just don't see in crypto without doing full KYC, AML, government violence type stuff. So if you think that's cool, please leave a comment on that thread and support it, because I think it's neat. I think we're just getting started. If we have thousands and thousands and thousands of people in Eden, and then it becomes a model for other communities, and we could start bringing that usability through like a human readable address. And again, I don't normally shill my stuff, but I'm shilling it now because I think it's important. Usability really matters. I wouldn't be working on this project unless I thought it cares. And I really appreciate all you guys' support to help spread the word. We haven't really shilled ourselves as an EOS.io, community and EOS.io technology. And frankly, that's because the reputation of EOS is just so bad in some places that's actually a negative for us to do that. But we are EOS.io and very, very happy with the technology. It's incredibly performant and it works well, but it is an uphill battle for us. There are still to this day people that tell us you need to move your FIO protocol to a different chain because you're not going to get any progress being EOS.io based. And so you all as a community can help us resolve that.
Yeah, I think and it's interesting because it's like, I think Wax goes through the same thing. I think Ultra has tendency to go through the same thing. And I think John might have said this on one of our previous streams. It's like, the tech is strong, but there's no better tech. But at the same time, it's like, in dark times, it's bad to be like hashtag EOS.io because people in the broader space, they're so negative towards, EOS that EOS.io takes a bad rap, right? And I think feel free to shell any of your projects. So I think that's what really is missing from the crypto space in general. It's that usability factor, right? And I know John's working on some new ideas for some of his projects with social logins that are going to make things easier. Wax did a pretty decent job, right? Ultra's doing things with gaming, and this is what the world needs. And if it comes from Polkadot, if it comes from Matic, if it comes from all of these other places, but it needs to be safe and it needs to be open and it needs to be transparent. And so I really see a really cool, Felix said, a bunch of really amazing initiatives coming together. You've got Bullish, right? You've got all of these other chains, tailored towards their other things. You've got the governance, you've got these great projects that are coming on that now with Eden can potentially get better funding. I think it's just going to be great. So, yeah, go ahead.
One thing to jump into is I think what's also exciting is people are going to see okay, now this could be the best way to receive funding. You have a great idea, and if you can pitch it to a community and show your contributions or how it can add to the community, it might be the best way to retrieve funding. So that's going to attract a lot of new people. Also, I think another thing that people tend to forget, being in the crypto space for so long, you forget every bull market brings in it gets bigger, and you have a whole fresh new set of faces and developers that are going to be looking at all these projects, especially top 25. For me, I believe smart institutional investors, at least you have to go through the top 50. If you're doing your due diligence, trying to find what technology is the best one to invest big money into, you go through all the top 50, top 100 coins, and you do your research on all of them. And then when you start to see things like like EOS, where you're like, oh wow, so this is it's already created an economy of its own. Like hopefully we get to a point where Eden is just self-funding without having to rely on inflation rewards. Then I mean you're going to grow anyways, because you're adding money into the system and you're building in the system. And so when people see like, hey, I got a good idea and this is the best way to fund, like to receive funding, because it's transparent and there's, you know, there's just not, I feel like you don't have to have as much connections and all the backroom deals and stuff to receive funding. I mean, it's an awesome thing.
Yeah, I'd love to see the Upland, as an example. Okay, I'd love to see the Upland community interface with Eden and leverage the two communities to be a 1 + 1 = 3. That would be a good metric. So I saw in the chat someone was like, "Hey, let's put a layer on Upland or something," or you know, who knows how you can leverage between the two communities. But that's the whole idea. 1 + 1 = 3, and then the power, the moving forward is just unleashed. You become more efficient, more effective, all these different things of surprises after surprises. That's the theory. And then we wake up 6 months, say, "Yeah, that happened, interesting," and then a year, and then you're like, "Wow, we're really onto something." Whatever. That's the theory. So yeah, that would be a good case point of the that, you know, those two communities leveraging.
I've had this conversation with a couple of you in the room, at least, if not more, but like, I really like the idea of it as like even a DAC governance model, right? Like the fact that you can have like representatives on a hierarchical layer, like it really speaks to me, right? Rather than just have everyone, it just seems like a more efficient way to get things done. Although like, I think you would have to kind of segregate it, because you wouldn't want to have every small decision go through this process of governance, right? Like, you know, do we put the new LED lights in, or do we you know, put the old style lights in? Okay, here's 64 people, go. We'll be back tomorrow to decide. Like, that's not going to work, right? But like, I think it's a really interesting model. So we've been going for a really long time, and I'm happy to go for longer, but I know, like, you know, some of you got coding to do, and you know, some of you probably have to you know, have toilets to run to. So like, if it's only me that needs to go to the washroom, then I'll just run and you guys carry on. But before we go, if you could have like one closing remark about all of this, about your experience in it, about you know, everything that happened, you know, what you're expecting, you know, short and sweet, what would your closing remark be on all of this thus far?
I'll jump in real quick. Eden can absolutely change the world. It's up to community at this point to take it to the next level. The technology is sufficiently advanced. What we really lack is the community leadership and this process that will allow us to make decisions and then reach consensus as a group and move as a herd. And we really, I believe, need to escape the event horizon of crypto altogether in order to make this process available to the rest of the world. Not that we can't have crypto on the back end, but it's like no one needs to know about that. It's just we need to offer these services to the world, and it can absolutely transform the way we do democracy.
If I could,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was yeah, go ahead, John. John, you go.
I was going to say that there's talks about having another trial run before the official one in July, and we should try and make sure that the next trial run is mostly new people and not just the same crew. And the reason is because I've seen a lot of optimism from people who participated directly and had that firsthand experience, and a lot of skepticism from people that have just read about it or don't know much about it. So we should really try and emphasize, you know, onboarding new people for these trial runs.
I was going to say the idea of the service that we have here, right? What is the Eden? So I think this sort of bite-sized incremental baby steps, getting the quick win, is we sort of prove that Eden, this process, creates a governance layer that is effective and almost can become governance as a service. So we can take Eden, we can take the respective rounds of people who make it to the top, and whoever those people will always change, but the governance application will always be there. The foundational sort of what Eden is doing is always going to be there. And I think governance as a service is this kind of great opportunity where we can almost generate revenue. So Eden can be an arbiter of these intent of code disputes, right? That's always been the issue with intent of code, is who's the judge? Well, now we've got, hopefully, I mean, the intent here is that Eden becomes this trusted human layer. So let's leverage that in intent of code disputes. And that's probably worth something. I think the next $14 million hack, I saw that there was a reward for $100,000 to retrieve that. So what if that $100,000 was instead a fee for services to arbitrate? And those fees are distributed amongst those who are involved with the resolution process. So BPs get a cut because they've got to do work. If you've got material experts to do the deliberations, they get a cut. And then Eden members, they can get a cut. And if it's too much money for your time because it was a quick thing, well then the overage goes back to the Eden pie, and it gets distributed in future election rounds. So I'm going to be focusing a lot on trying to push the idea of Eden governance becoming a service that can do many things: provide insurance layer, provide auditing, and just using this trust to create a network that builds this effect that people can then buy into and trust the process and get engaged. So I think we've got a lot of opportunity here to push this quite a ways.
I so agree. I would say that there's hope. If I was to leave with any comment, is there is hope for governance. There's hope for a broken system that has a failing approval rating here in the United States, as an example, and in many other countries where the leading bodies of these nations are drastically failing their population. And so there's hope for politics in this model, but I would also caveat that with, if we can take it. And really, this is a red pill moment. Do you want the red pill or the blue pill? Do you want the truth, or do you want a convenient, comfy lies and deception? And that's what it comes down to. That's what this is about. I'm sure there's going to be a handful of criticisms on the Eden OS governance when it gets running and there's millions and millions of dollars flowing around. There's going to be massive amounts of criticism. People are going to say, wait, why did that person do this? Even now, people thought what Eve did was considered a bribe, even though that wasn't his intention at all, right? There's going to be criticism because, again, it's transparent. And so this is the red pill moment. If you want truth and transparency and you want to know how governance actually works, this is the moment for humanity to step up and claim it. If you want to continue to be asleep, continue to be lied to, continue to be deceived, then, throw out the criticisms and, keep complaining about what is and see nothing change. So I'm excited about it. I feel there's hope if we can claim it.
Okay, my 2 cents, last thoughts. Eden was going to organize or bring scope to a very well-funded EOS, community economy, and it's going to organize it, and so that's basically going to put it in like this super trajectory mode. We're going to start just punching out stuff. It's going to be really cool.
All right. Well, and my last remarks, I'd say, so a lot of people got into EOS because of Dan Larimer. If you follow his track record, I mean, he's just as valuable as Satoshi. He was talking to Satoshi and pointing out problems of Bitcoin back in the day. He does not give up. He continues to pursue blockchain, and that's huge. A lot of people think, oh, all this money's coming into crypto. Now you got these companies, big money behind this. It's like, okay, we still got to pay somebody to develop the blockchain technology. And it's not easy. People have been trying to do this for decades because, more than a decade at least. But, Dan Larimer, he's been working on it and improving every step of the way. And this is his next product. And it's like every single product he's made has had success to some level, and it's getting better. And so this is his next product. And that's a huge reason, I think, to be bullish on Eden, and for many other reasons of what Eden's going to bring, I believe, to this community. But that would be my last remark on that.
I was gonna try to do like the one, half sentence Twitter recap, but it's just impossible. So if you're watching this back, just rewind for like 3 minutes and watch it again because it was all brilliant. That's all for us this week. Corey sends his apologies. He had to duck out. He had an actually non-computer emergency, but apparently everything's okay. So we'll be back next week with another roundtable. You follow Corey and Jimmy D over on our Uplifters channel. And thanks all for joining us, and keep doing amazing, wonderful, brilliant things because you guys all rock. And EOS via Eden is lucky to have you all.
To the moon.